In this series of learning programming in C, in this video I am going to talk about structure of a C program. What is basic structure of a C program, how the program looks like, how to write a C program. We will also see this with a simple example. We will take a simple example and we will write a program here. In the previous videos I have already discussed some basics like what is C, introduction to programming, why do you write programs, low level languages, high level languages, language translators, features of C language. Now let us discuss the basic structure of a C program. What sections are there in a C program, how you can write a C program, what you have to include. And see, I am going to discuss all the sections, but some sections are optional and some sections are essential to include in your program. It is not necessary that you have to include all the sections in your program when you are writing a program. So very first section is your documentation section, or you can say it is comment section. Here what you include comments means what information you include in this section, like the author of that program, who has developed that program, date, the date and time of development of that program, and a brief description about that program. Like suppose let us take one example, I want to write a program for addition of two numbers. So what you can include in this documentation section? This you can include, author is Jayanti Khatri, you can include date as well as time, and you can also write down a brief description like program for addition of two numbers. And now these are comments, you have to include this line in comment section, like you can say, if you write this one 2/, this is single line comment in C language. Now what does this mean? This line would be ignored by the compiler will not execute this line, right? Compiler is not going to convert this line into object code. Completely compiler will ignore this line. And suppose this line also it is a comment, and if you want to comment multiple lines, then there is also a multiple line comment. Here you can write /*, these two lines, right, and here asterisk and this /. This is single line comment, this is multiple line comments, right? So whatever comment you want to include, you can include either a single line comment or multiple line comment. So now what is the purpose of including this thing? If compiler ignore this thing, compiler will not execute this thing. It is just for understanding, for future use. Like suppose if anyone wants to use your program in future and he wants to understand what this program is all about, then rather than looking at code, see, addition of two number, it is simple, having maybe 4 or 5 lines, simple as that. You can look that program and you can easily figure out this program is about addition of two numbers. But actual programs, when they develop software, then programs are having maybe 100 of line of code, 1000 lines of code. So by looking at that code, we cannot easily understand what this program is all about. But if you look at this documentation section, which is above that program, you can easily understand that who has developed this program, the date and the time, and what this program, what this code is all about, just by looking at documentation section, right? So this section is just for the understanding and reading of the program, to enhance the reading of the program, to understand the program, what the program is all about. It is optional. Generally when you write program, when we write program, we don't include this documentation section, right? But it's better to include. It should be in your practice, but because in future when you will write those programs, then obviously you have to include documentation section. So it's better you start including this section from today only, right, when you write program, but this is completely optional. Second section is link section. Here we include header files. Header files means like we include hash, include stdio.h. Hash is what? It is preprocessor, right? Now stdio means the full form is standard input output. .h extension, why? Because it is header file. Now there are some predefined functions in C library, built-in functions, and we use those functions that I have already discussed when we were discussing the features of C language. That C is having many built-in functions, many predefined functions. You can directly use those functions. Now this header file is for what? Standard input output, means for which function? For printf and scanf. Printf is what? For output, and scanf is what? To take input. right? Now see, these are predefined functions, and where these functions are defined in this library, in this header file stdio.h. So if you want to include this in your program, then you have to include this header file. Why so? Because see, compiler doesn't understand what does that mean, printf. We understand printf is what? To give output, to print something on screen. But compiler is not having its own brain. He will not understand what printf means. So you have to provide the meaning, the code, right? And when compiler will look at that code, then only compiler is able to understand that printf means he has to print something. And where that definition of this function is, where that code about this function is written, in this header file, in this library stdio.h. So see, same, suppose if you want to add two numbers, then simply if you write sum, compiler is not able to understand sum is what. But if you write down the logic, the code, sum is equal to suppose a variable a plus b, yeah, then compiler will do sum of two variables a plus b numbers, and will store that number in some variable, right? Same for printf also, you have to define, you have to tell the compiler what printf means. So that meaning is in this header file stdio.h. It's already defined. You don't have to write down the code in your program for printf function. You can directly use this function, but you have to include this header file to tell the compiler the meaning of this thing. Same as scanf, the meaning of this thing is also in this header file. If you include hash, include conio.h. Conio means console input output, the full form. Sometimes they can ask in Viva. This is for what? If you use a function getch, it is basically to hold the screen, output screen. When we will discuss a complete program, then we will discuss what does that mean. So the function or this function is already defined in this header file, right? So when this, you will write this in your code, compiler will not able to understand if you will not include this file. But to tell the compiler the meaning of this getch, then why you are including this file? You want to hold the output screen. So that meaning, that code of this function is already written in this library, right? That is why you are including this conio.h. Now suppose if you want to use some maths function like square root, sqrt, or power, those functions are defined in math.h. At that time you will include here hash include math.h. If you want to use some string functions like strlen, you want to find out length of a string, strcmp, string compare, string concatenation, then compiler is not aware about this thing. Let string length means he has to find out length of the string. No, where this definition is written, the code of this function is written, the meaning of this function is written in the library string.h. So there you will include hash include string.h. Then compiler will come to know, yeah, string length strlen means he will have to find out the length of that string, right? That is why we include this header file, and this is what? Link section, because the linker is going to link this thing, the code, the C library code, means the predefined function code, into your program. How the linking and loading is done, that also we'll discuss when we will discuss the compilation process. So this is what? Link section, when you include the header files. Third section is what? Definition section. This section defines all the symbolic constants. Now what does that mean? Suppose I want to write in a program, I want to use pi. You know the pi means 3.14, right? So I'm using this pi in a program, suppose 10 times, right? So rather than writing 3.14 10 times in a program, what you can do, you can write down here hash define pi 3.14. So if you use this hash define, this is what macro definition. So whenever in the program this is written pi, suppose 10 times pi is written in a program, so everywhere that will be replaced with this value, right? Let us suppose one more example. I am writing here hash define suppose any max value or min value. Max is 100 and max I am using in a program in suppose 10 times or 15 times or 20 times. So rather than writing 10 times 100, 100, 100, you can write down this thing. One more advantage is what? If you want to suppose change value of max, suppose I want to change it from 100 to 200. So if you will not write this thing, if in a program you have written that value 100 10 times, then at 10 places you have to update that value 200. But if you use this thing, then in a program rather than this value you can simply write down the name max. So when you are going to update, then you just have to update here only 100 to 200, that's it, and that will automatically be replaced by 200 every time you write max in a program. So that is, you can say, advantage of using these macro definitions. Or here you can also write down small function definition. Like next comes to global declaration section. See, in a program we use two types of variables and functions. One is local, another is global. What are those global, suppose local variables? They can be used within that function only, where you define those variables. Like if I am writing a function here, void sum, and if suppose I am declaring a variable a here, so a I can use within this function only. This a variable I cannot use in main function, or maybe another function, like maybe any function is there for subtraction. There I cannot use this a. But suppose here in a program we have 5 functions, and in all the 5 functions we are using same variable, that is a. So now you can globally declare that variable. If you globally declare that variable, you can use that variable throughout the program, in every function of a program, in main also, and in every user defined functions. But if you will not globally declare, then if you have 5 user defined functions like sum or subtraction, multiplication, division, or any function, for every function you have to declare this variable, like int a 2 times and 5 times. If 5 functions are there, then you have to declare this variable 5 times, because this is what local declaration. But if you will declare here outside these functions and outside of main function, then you can use that like int a, then you can use this variable in every function throughout the program, in every function of the program, right? So the variables that are used in more than one functions in a program, those are global variables, and you can declare those variables globally outside of those functions. As well as here you will declare what? All the user defined functions you will declare here. Suppose a function is to find out sum of a program, so here you can declare that sum, void sum, and that's it. Again a function is suppose subtraction, void subtraction, and that's it. This is what? Global declaration of a variable, global declaration of functions. Now next is main section. This section is compulsory, it is not optional. This section is optional, this section is also optional, this you have to include, this section is also optional, but this is you have to include, this is compulsory to include. And in a program there can be only one main function. This question can also be asked many times, like how many main function can be there in a program? Only one main function. Always control will go, when you compile that program, when you run that program, the control will go to main function first of all, right? So one main function can be there. Now how you will write main function? Like main, I am writing here void main, this is body of main function. Here you will write some statements. Now here also 2 parts are there, one is declaration part and second one is executable part. In declaration part you declare some variables if you want to declare, like int a, int b, int sum, or any variable. And in executable part it is what? The logic. Like if you want to find out sum, then executable part means sum is equal to a plus b. You are writing down the logic. Printf, you can say enter value of a and b, scanf, then sum is equal to a plus b, then you can print the sum, print sum and this thing, that will discuss the syntax. That is executable part, the logic. And the declaration of variables, that is what? in declaration part. So 2 parts are there in main function, and this is compulsory to include, right? Always control will go to main function, the first line of main function when you compiling that program, right? So next is we have subprogram section. In this section you will include all the user defined functions, like after main you can write down. So here we can have many user defined functions, 1 2 3 4 up to n, and generally all the user defined functions comes immediately after main function, but that is not compulsory. They may appear in any order. Generally we write just after main function, and you call these user defined functions into main function, and these are also optional. It's not like that you have to it's compulsory to include user defined function in your program, no. But yeah, main function is main section, to include main section, that is compulsory. And in main also 2 parts I have told you, declaration and executable part. So in declaration part we declare those variables that are used in executable parts, right? And it is completely optional to include declaration part. In some program it is not, we don't include declaration part, that also we'll discuss. But there should be at least one statement in executable part, at least one, that is compulsory. And both the declaration and executable parts, that comes within curly braces, void main, then curly braces, then 2 parts, and then closing of curly braces, right? Now let us see one example. So generally your first program is to print hello world. Now how you will print? Include header files, then I'll write down main function. This is compulsory, right? And within main you have to print, so you can write down printf just hello world, and that's it, right? Here to hold the output screen you can use getch. Fine. So see, we haven't included documentation section in this. Suppose I am not writing this thing. We have include link section only, definition section is not there, global declaration section is not there, because we are not using these things in this program. This is a simple program. In main also I have only executable part, there is no declaration part, that is fine. And after that, that's it. Subprogram section, there is no subprogram section in this program, right? So it is not compulsory that you have to include all these sections. But yeah, this is basic structure. Every program should follow this structure. If you are including every part, like you have user defined functions also, global declaration, everything in a program, this is small program, that is why some sections are missing. Suppose you want to find out sum of 2 numbers, or suppose you want to include all these sections. So let us write down a program for that thing. Suppose this is a program. So here, and I have written down this also, like program is just to print something, it's not addition of 2 numbers. So this is documentation section, this is link section, this is what? Definition section. I have defined one macro, that is max, and max value is 100. Although I am not using this here, there is no use of this thing, but just to make you understand how you write a program when you include all the sections, that's it. I have used this thing. This is what? Int a is equal to 50. This declaration is what? See, int is data type, a is name of the variable, and this is value. Everything we will discuss in detail later, but this is just to make you understand the structure. This is global declaration. It is outside of all the functions. One function is display function. This is also what? Global declaration section. This is for variable, and this is for function. Right. Now comes to main function. In main I have no declaration part, only executable part. Printf hello. This is syntax to write printf. Printf, then these brackets, and then your quotation mark, and within that you can print something. Whatever you will write, that would be displayed on the screen. And here what you are doing? I am calling this function. This is what? Calling, right? Calling of a function. In calling you don't need to specify the data type of any function. Just name of the function, that is display, right? After this main we have subprogram section. I have only one user defined function, that is display. Void display, this is definition of this user defined function. This is calling of this user defined function, and this is what? Declaration of this user defined function. 3 things are there, 3 things are associated with the function. This also we'll discuss in detail. So in definition we are just printing printf Jenny's lectures. So whenever this program is going to be executed, control will go to main function. So first of all, what would be printed? Hello. Then you are calling display function. Then control will go to this function. Now within this function, what is written? Printf Jenny's lectures. Printf means compiler can understand, like printf means he has to give some output because you have included this file and the code of this printf is here. So compiler will understand, compiler can easily understand printf means he has to print Jenny's lectures. Then first of all hello would be printed and then Jenny's lectures would be printed. Then control will go back to main function, and after that you can write down what in main function you can write down get ch to hold that output screen. Right, that's it. This would be output hello and Jenny's lectures. Right, so this is what structure of a C program. In next video we are going to discuss compilation process, how the program is to be converted into object code and then executable code. Right, so now I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye, take care.